Good morning, BookTube. This is an original tag. It is the Reading the Humanities tag. I've looked all over BookTube. I don't think anything quite like this has been done. Or if it has and I've missed it, I apologize. But I've been thinking a little bit about the humanities. We hear about a lot about the sciences and math and all that, but from my perspective, as important as they are, the humanities are equally important. So the humanities basically are, I'm going to list them, or what I think are the humanities, but they're academic disciplines that study human culture and history and creativity, and those studies tend to be either analytic, speculative, or historically based. So the fields in the humanities will be what I use to create these questions, and hopefully you enjoy them. So let's get right to it, and I'll put this coffee up, even though I need it as fuel to get going here. So the first prompt is, name a book or author who uses the field of or concepts from anthropology in their work. Now, I studied anthropology and archaeology as an undergrad and was always immensely impressed by Ursula K. Le Guin. And her background and family background in anthropology is quite incredible. Her father was Alfred Kroeber, who was a legendary American anthropologist. And her mother wrote an immensely popular best-selling book about a California Native American named Ishi. And I think you can still find that book around. I don't know off the top of my head what name her mother used. I don't believe she used the name Kroeber at the time, but she may have. So, but it's Ishi, I-S-H-I, and you could probably find it on Abe Books or something like that. The work to me that, and all her works, as far as I know, I haven't read everything, but I've read quite a bit of her works. That the one volume of her works that really stands out for me, with where she uses her anthropological knowledge, is this one, The Left Hand of Darkness, where you have a human from Earth as an ambassador to a planet where there's well, let me read from an introduction. It's about gender. The Left Hand of Darkness unpeels assumptions of gender that were so common in 1969 as to go unremarked upon. The inhabitants of the world called winter have only one gender. Once a month, for a couple of days, they come into a state known as Kemmer, in which they develop either male or female primary sexual characteristics. Gen Li, a male from Earth, the ambassador of a federation of worlds known as the Ecumen, will wind up learning about humanity and loyalty, and on the way realize that pretty much everything he believed is wrong. And that's a fair description. It's from Neil Gaiman's introduction to the Penguin Classics edition of The Left Hand of Darkness. I'll give you a title page in case you need to look for that. It's sort of hard for me to line up here. So, yeah, that would be that. So, the second one, excuse me, a book or author who uses archaeology in their work. Now, my primary focus as an undergrad was in archaeology. And I had a textbook by this author, and then ended up reading, he's just become prolific in the field of archaeology. So for this, I'm not going to fiction or anything like that. I'm going to a person who writes archaeology. But with this prompt, you can do either. And that was Brian Fagan. Right here, I think, yeah, Yale did these volumes called A Little History of, and then this one happens to be his Little History of Archaeology. He's a magnificent writer. He's written a shelf of books, Brian Fagan. And no matter what he's writing about, he wrote one about famine and how it impacted the archaeological record. He's written ones about the history of in Egyptology, and he's written stuff about Africa, about Mesoamerica. So I've always found him to be fascinating. So yeah, Brian Fagan. Number 3, have you read a work from ancient Greece or Rome? If so, what was it, and do you have a favorite author or work? And I have read many of the classics from Greece and Rome. I think last year I was watching Ernest Lee Eston's channel, and it may have been the year before, and he discussed this book. So I went out and got it. This is Christopher B. Krebs, A Most Dangerous Book, Tacitus Germania, From the Roman Empire to the Third Reich. So this is a book about a book, in this case a classic, and how that book has been misused and misused through history. And I found it to be a fascinating story. So if you like books about books or books about the classics, that's a good one. Number 4, history. Do you have a favorite historical period you enjoy reading about? If so, what is it? I do. In my case, it's early colonial history and the Revolutionary War period in the United States. I read plenty of other stuff, but that's one of my favorites, or my favorite. And I read quite a bit of this stuff. And last year I read Those Turbulent Sons of Freedom, Ethan Allen's Green Mountain Boys in the American Revolution by Christopher S. Wren. And I did review this for Steve Donahue's Open Letters. So I received this book from Steve, and it was absolutely loved it. And it all takes place around, for the most part, right around where I live. So yes, American Revolution in that case. Linguistics or languages. Reading is about language, among other things. What is your favorite translated work of literature? This is tough, because I read a lot of works in translations. I really enjoyed Tin Drum by Günter Grass, German, and Hermann Hesse, anything by him. I've read quite a bit of Russian literature, Dostoevsky, and Tolstoy. So I don't speak any language except for English, which is a shame and limits your worldview. So I try to counter that a bit by reading works in translation. And in my case, the one I picked here is Umberto Eco, The Name of the Rose. Some of you have read the book, and some of you probably have seen the movie. I really enjoy it. Another book about books in a way, a novel in this case. And I really enjoy Umberto Eco. Other Italians, I enjoy the works of Roberto Colasso. So there's plenty in translation, but I really do wish I read and spoke a different language than English. Number 6, law and politics. Do you read political books or books related to the law? And I'm going to be curious when people do this tag to see if they read those and what they are. It's not something I discuss a lot. I do read books about the law, and I do read books about politics. Some of the politics books don't have much of a shelf life. They're really time sensitive, in my opinion. But and law books about the law maybe don't always get the love that some of them deserve. And all this stuff has a huge impact on our lives, no matter what country we live in. But in this case, I picked something fairly local, This is called Uncommon Law, Ancient Roads, and Other Ruminations on Vermont's Legal History by Paul S. Gillies. And you would think that would be a dry subject, but because he relates it to the landscape and people of my own community, it was fascinating. I found out that there was a character from this little town. We have less than 2,000 people over a very big area. Actually is considered the founding father of railroad law throughout the English-speaking and former English colonies. When railroads came in, they caused not only a lot of advantages, but a lot of havoc. You know, he was the fellow in that book was responsible for a lot of the early law about railroads. So I actually went and found his grave in the village next to us here. So number 7, literature does not have a universally accepted definition. What is yours? Well, for me, literature, obviously, is something on the written page, something that has lasting value. It doesn't have to be something I agree with, but it has to have lasting value in an ongoing conversation through the ages. So that can get a bit murky. I believe modern literature exists. I think you can, and I'm not talking classics here. I think modern literature tries to use language in such a way that it becomes the tool for getting the message across or the story across or all this sort of thing. You can see why literature doesn't have an accepted definition. It's very hard to pin down. But for me, it can be any genre. The notion that it's literature because it's one thing or the other doesn't make much sense to me. You can have a mystery novel that's literature, and we do. Science fiction novel that's literature. It's the seriousness and the craft and the attention given to the vehicle being the written word. So that would be it for me. Philosophy is the love of wisdom. This is number 8. Have you ever read a work of philosophy? Do you have a favorite? Now, I read philosophical works, and I read works about the history of philosophy. And two very different things. I enjoy philosophy and have read more at different times in my life and less at different times in my life. There is a survey that's fairly recent. I remember reading Will Durant's, I think it's the story of philosophy. I've read Bertrand Russell did some, even though he was a philosopher, he also did some histories of philosophy. So over the years I've read things I like. But recently I've read these 2 volumes by Anthony Gottlieb. The first one is The Dream of Reason, A History of Western Philosophy from Greeks to the Renaissance. And the second one is The Dream of Enlightenment, The Rise of Modern Philosophy. So for background volumes, I find these 2 to be really, really good. So let's see. Number 9, religion. Name a book or author that you have read that has influenced your own personal view of religion. And for me, that's the old Yale professor, Yaroslav Pelikan. And the reason why is because he had such a wide-ranging mind. He wrote famous and popular volumes like Jesus Through the Centuries, Mary Through the Centuries, Bach Among the Theologians, Faust, I think it's Among the Theologians, a similar title. He wrote Vindication of Tradition, where he has volumes where he talks from everything from John Henry Newman to Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. So obviously, and he was a great scholar of Luther. And he did a 5-volume set, I believe, about early Christian doctrines that is very, very much sought after now. So, yeah, I'd say Jaroslav Pelikan. Number 10, performing arts. Musicology, theater, and dance often put the performer front and center. Do you have a favorite performer? If so, who is it, and why do you appreciate their work? So this could be an actor, a singer, a dancer, but somebody who impacts you or that you really enjoy. In my case, I mean, there's many, but I chose Robin Williams. And as tragic as his story was, he would amaze me when I would watch him go off on a tangent. You just could see his mind working, and then boom, and it was just unbelievable. I saw him once when he did an interview. What was that show? Inside the Actor's Studio, where he would get a question and he was gone. He would just take off with it in a way that was amazing. I wonder if that clip's on YouTube. You might be able to find it. If I think about it, I'll try to. I'm filming this at work, so that by the time I get home and it gets edited, I may have forgotten. But it'd be fun to find that YouTube clip, if it exists. But it was Inside the Actor's Studio. So number 11. Let me get this sheet here so I can read it. Visual arts. Do you have a favorite visual artist or media type? So, and do the two relate? So do you like drawing or painting or, I guess, computer art, anything like that? And if so, do you have somebody who does it that you enjoy? In my case, I'm not sure how popular he is nowadays, but I really enjoy Picasso. And I enjoy him because of his life, his creativity, and the vast range of media he worked in. He sculpted, drew, painted, everything. And this series here, this is a 3-volume biography. I believe there's a 4th one coming out. And this is by John Richardson. It's unbelievably good, and it's Picasso. We have, let's see if I get them in order here. Life of Picasso, The Cubist Rebel, 1907 to 1916. So I did that out of order. So it should have been The Prodigy, 1881 to 1906. And then finally, The Triumphant Years, 1917 to 1932. Just to give you an idea, this volume is well illustrated all the way through. You would have to be in a life of an artist, a visual artist. Wonderful books if you ever get a chance to find them. So yeah, that would be my choice. So finally, to wrap this thing up, I don't even know how long it's gone on. It's got to be almost 20 minutes, I would think. Tag someone. Because this is an original tag, I'm going to do a pretty good list to get it out there. If I don't tag you, it's not because I don't appreciate you. It's just because when I realized the list was starting to get a little crazy, I stopped. So I'm going to read them fast here, and I don't think I'll put everybody's name down below in a link like I usually do. It's just too long. So I'm going to start with Steve Donahue, Joseph Francis Burton, who's doing a wonderful read-along about ancient Christianity, the Apocrypha, which I'm behind on, but I will catch up. Todd the Librarian, Paperback Junkie, Ernest Lee Eston, Totally Pretentious, From the Dusty Bookshelf, PK's Books, Strip Cover Lit, they've been doing the tags, Bookish, A Journey Through Books, Elena Macradina, Sue's Book Nook, Remembered Reads, Alan Morton, Literary Gladiators, Jay Shea, Bookish North, Mel's Bookland Adventures, Roshika likes books, sorry, she probably does love books too, Rashmika, I hope I pronounced that right. Biblio Atlas, Old Blues Chapter and Verse, Graham Quigley, Todd's Bursting Bookcase, Just One Reader, Run Right Reads, In My Reading Life, and anybody else, obviously. So hopefully some of these prompts will get you thinking, and I better get back to work. So Thank you, BookTube.